Hi, everyone. Welcome to the very first episode of the Roberts Ratings Discography Ranking Series. So, just as a brief introduction to how I'm going to do this on this channel, again, is I'm going to break down discographies into multiple episodes. Because of how my rating system works, I do it chronologically, and then at the end, we can do a summation if it's a long discography. And one of the discographies that we're doing, which is this very first one, of course, is the discography of Tom Petty. Tom Petty's been a longtime favorite of mine since I was small. He's one of the earliest memories of music that I ever had, starting with about Full Moon Fever. So we're going to dive deep into Tom Petty's discography and look at his songs, look at his albums, and talk about why I like it. Um, anyway, our first episode is going to span from 1976 to about 1987. It's going to go from the very first album, the debut album in 1976, and close with Let Me Up, I've Had Enough. And then episode 2 will be from Full Moon Fever till Echo in 1999. Episode 3 will be the last stretch of his discography, including the Mudcrutch albums that came out. I feel like that's very much a part of Tom's discography. And then we'll do a summarization episode at the end where we'll talk about where everything fits together. I'm also going to talk about in this episode what is my favorite album from this time period if I have to pick just one. And that's a hard thing for me. I usually have multiple favorites all the time. But we're going to pick one today from this first 11-year span. So, without further ado, let's talk quickly about the Roberts rating system, how that works again, and then I'm going to jump into Tom Petty's discography, and we'll go from there. So, Roberts rating system works like this. The album itself is on a scale of 1 to 10. There can be half points assigned. That's how you feel about the overall album. Then each album gets 1 point for each song. I feel like is, I don't know, a cardinal song or a song that is a great summation and connection to that particular artist. Then, if more than 50% of the content of the album is good, or there's that many that songs that stand out that way, it will get a bonus point. But if it's even more than that, if it moves beyond 50%, then we're going to give it 3 points bonus. And then you'll get a final score for all the albums. So a lot of these albums aren't super long. They're between, about 9 and 12 tracks. So it's pretty easy for a really good album to inch up with that extra 2 bonus points. And I think that the way that has fallen out in my rankings with this one has worked out pretty well. So let's talk about the first album, the debut album, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. So let's take a look at my notes here. So, first album, really, there are 3 songs for me on that one that really stood out. It's Breakdown, The Wild One Forever, and who could forget American Girl? American Girl is just, it's so, how do I even put it? It just creeps through so much of our own culture. I mean, it's even in Silence of the Lambs, for crying out loud. So it's just a cardinal song, and what a way to start a band, that debut album. Now, for me, it's not an album that I go back to perpetually. There's a few songs that I really love off of it, but when I think about rotations of albums that I listen through on a regular basis, the debut album, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, is probably not one of them. Regardless, I still think it's a really solid album. And I would go so far as to rate the album out of 10. I'd give it 7.5. Then there are 3 songs, Breakdown, The Wild One Forever, and American Girl, that jump out for me. So it gets 3 points for those. But since it doesn't really hit that 50% mark and go beyond the 50% mark, no bonus points there. So for me, the first album, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, is a 10.5. The next album, which came out pretty quick after that one, is You're Gonna Get It. And You're Gonna Get It just speaks to me a little bit better. And there's a number of songs on there that kind of live rent free in my own brain. So let's talk about which songs those are. You're Gonna Get It there's something about the song that I just love. Too Much Ain't Enough. Once again, there are so many things about that I love about that. It just flows. Magnolia has its own vibe, and Listen to Our Heart is just such a classic that you know it. You can't help but go back to Listen to Our Heart. I Need to Know has that sense of urgency that we can all feel in how we feel about particular situations, particularly even romantic ones, or other parts of our lives. And then we have Restless. And as a particularly restless person, I can relate to a song about that sense of restlessness. So I keep bouncing the camera here. Um, anyway, so having said that, I would give You're Gonna Get It an 8. So just a little step above the debut. I find it a lot more listenable. I go back to this album a little more often than You're Gonna Get It. Excuse me, not You're Gonna Get It, than Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And it has 6 songs on it that just meet that criteria for me of songs that I go back to again and again. So since it's 6, it's more than 50%. I'm going to give it a bonus 3 points. And that punches this album all the way up to a 17. And that fits really well with how I feel about the album. The first album, not a bad album, but it's a 10.5. This one's a 17. So, next one we're going to go to is a big hitter. I think the only thing that, well, it's also one of the great things about this album is it's not a crazy long album. It's only 9 songs. But that is Damn the Torpedoes. And if you know any of the history around Damn the Torpedoes, it is a really neat thing that the album got made in the first place. So, anyway, it's a classic album from Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers for a reason. There's so much cultural context. And if you want to hear more about that, there's a tremendous book by Warren Zanes about it. There's also, I'm trying to remember the author on it. There's Conversations with Tom Petty. That's really good. And then Running Down a Dream, that documentary by Peter Bogdanovich that is about 4 hours long. It covers this period in great detail and well worth your time if you're a person who likes knowing kind of the stories behind the albums and everything. So, uh, Refugee, that's one of my favorite tracks on it. It's there's just so much to Refugee. Here Comes My Girl. The way that that leads in with the guitar is just so fantastic every time. Even the Losers. I mean, we all feel like a loser sometimes, um, and it's the sentiment that even the losers get lucky sometimes is just a fantastic one. Don't Do Me Like That is so wonderfully punchy that it's just a relentless earworm and can get in your head um, all the time. Now, there's another one on this album that I really like, which is Louisiana Rain. So, having said that, there's 5 tracks on here that really jump out to me, and that means that more than the album is 50% of tracks I'm really into. So it gets a bonus point of 3 points here. It's got 5 notable songs, and I give the album 9.5. It's way up there. So 17.5 for Damn the Torpedoes, and I feel pretty good about that as far as like my own listening experience goes. Now the next album is a heavy hitter for me, which is Hard Promises, and I'm just going to say it right now. Hard Promises is a 10 for me. I've gone back to that album so many times throughout my listening experiences as a human being, and it's got 7 songs that I absolutely love on it. I love The Waiting, which just, oh my word, I don't even know where to begin with how much I love The Waiting. Night Watchman with its funky lines in it. If you listen to it, you'll catch it. Something Big has just that feeling of something big is going to be coming. King's Road, The Wanderlust wanders into that one. Letting You Go is just a marvelous track. Insider, that combination of Tom Petty and Stevie Nicks intertwining on that song. I like it even better than Stop Dragging My Heart Around, even though that one's, punchier, has higher energy. There's just something the way that Insider moves and the way that Insider connects to the material. And then you can still change your mind. Um, so good. So Hard Promises is a 10. It's got 7 songs I love on it. More than 50% of the content is great. So it gets that extra 3. It's a 20. And I'm going to tell you right now, actually, Hard Promises is the highest ranked for me for this entire period. And I realize that might be slightly controversial. Damn the Torpedoes usually is what people fall on. But that's just how it's fallen for me over the years. Damn the Torpedoes used to be higher than Hard Promises for me, but Hard Promises just grew and grew in my esteem through multiple listens and a lot of time with Tom Petty down the road. Now, the next one is Long After Dark. Long After Dark had a marvelous remaster come out of it this year with some bonus content. If you become a fan of this album or are a fan of this album, be sure to check it out because it's just a treasure trove from that time period. And honestly, it made me listen to the album differently than I had before. In fact, when I was going through this information just earlier today, when I was thinking about creating this episode, I had originally rated Long After Dark lower than I did. But after I went back to it and listened to it again with new ears once more, I realized it hits pretty good for me. It actually has 8 songs that I feel like are quintessential Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And I think that it rewards you by listening to it more than some of these albums. So, underrated album. I'd give it an 8.5 total. Still, I don't think it quite hits the heights of Damn the Torpedoes or Hard Promises. But having said that, I would actually say it has more notable songs than either of them. For me, at least as a Tom Petty listener. A One Story Town, You Got Lucky, Deliver Me, Change of Heart, Finding Out, We Stand a Chance, Straight into Darkness, and Between Two Worlds. That's 8 songs. Tremendous album. So, and I'm not trying to talk it up too much. There's a lot of people who are going to disagree with my assessment about this album. But from my point of view, as a longtime Tom Petty listener and a person who just loves music, I think this is a rewarding one. So 8.5 for the album rank itself, 8 points for the notable songs number, and 3 bonus points. 19.5. It's just shy of Hard Promises. So the next album, Southern Accents, they had originally intended it to be a double album. And between personal problems and production issues and just it seems like that some of the vision got lost in the creation of this album. There are still some great songs on it, but it's a lot less songs than Long After Dark. There's a contrast there. There was also some production shifts. It's getting more into the 80s sound. Now, you saw some of that in Long After Dark. You Got Lucky, the way of the synth sound and everything else, but it's still, You Got Lucky still sounds good. Some of the production on Southern Accents sounds a lot more dated than some of the earlier albums, which might affect how someone listens to it. Now, having said that, there are 4 songs I really love on Southern Accents. I love Rebels. Don't Come Around Here No More has one of the most fun music videos you could probably ever watch, especially if you are a person who likes things related to Alice in Wonderland and don't mind something that's a little quirky. Southern Accents is just a magnificent song that my goodness, it taps into that contrast of not quite feeling like you belong in a lot of places and lamenting and expressing on the complexities of those topics. Tom Petty's version is just magnificent. If you want another magnificent version of the song, check out Johnny Cash's cover of it from the American Recordings albums. You won't be disappointed, especially if you like Johnny Cash. And then The Best of Everything. The Best of Everything is just a marvelous, marvelous Tom Petty and the Heartbreaker song. So 4 tracks here. It's 4 notable songs for me. But as a whole, the album is not my favorite listening experience of all the ones we're talking about here. It's a 6.5 for me. So 10.5. It ties with the debut album only because of, well, it has one more song that I quite like, and that's really it. It's I just don't think it's as good of an album. The debut album, as far as tying in points, well, I think the debut album is a more listenable album experience than Southern Accents. But the highs of Southern Accents are so good. So, well worth your time if you want to dig a little deeper. But we haven't arrived quite at the last one in our discography episode for today, which is Let Me Up, I've Had Enough. Now, production on this album, I think, would be considered, from a number of people, probably the worst. You're getting into the high 80s, and there's just something about that time period. There's a lot of good music that I like, but a lot of it didn't age particularly well. Now, in spite of that, there are 4 songs on here I really love from this discography. There's Jammin' Me, which was co-written with Bob Dylan. Runaway Trains. There's just that, I don't know, that sound that you get in there. There's a wistfulness in it. And It'll All Work Out, which is probably actually one of my favorite Tom Petty songs of all time. I've had it on repeat multiple times when I was going through different things in my life. And then Ain't Love Strange. I quite love Ain't Love Strange. So 4 songs, but honestly, I'd probably only give this album 6, and maybe that's being generous. Today I'm going to say 6. Maybe other days I might give it a 5.5. But so 6, album rank 4 for the notable songs number on here. So we're a total of 10. So this, for me, was definitely the worst of that time period between 1976 and 87. And there's a whole reason why there was a great big shift in what came in the next, which is my favorite time period of Tom Petty, starting with Full Moon Fever. And there's a couple other things that happened that led into that, and maybe we'll talk a bit about that in another episode. But Let Me Up, I've Had Enough. I think the band felt that way. They needed a break. They needed a shift. And that was going to happen. So, all right. What are we looking at here? We've got the worst rated album would be Let Me Up, I've Had Enough, 10 points. Best rated, Hard Promises. Is Hard Promises my favorite album from this time period? Yeah. Yeah, I would say it is. It's hard, though, because I really like Long After Dark. Now, you can kind of see that reflected in the points. They're pretty close, 19.5 versus 20. But if I was going to say, if I was going to pick one album out of these albums, it's going to be Hard Promises. That's going to be my favorite for this first period in this first episode. So, not that it matters, the total points for this period is 105 points. And that's pretty good. Pretty good. So, anyway, I'm excited to talk about the next time period. That'll be our next episode about Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And that's a big period too. So we'll see how it holds up compared to this. And like I said at the beginning of the episode, after I do the 3 different periods, we're going to have kind of a summarization episode where we get to look at the points for everything and where everything falls. And we'll see who ranks the highest. So anyway, will Hard Promises hold out? I don't know. Not making any promises. So thanks for joining me in this ranking, and we will go ahead and prepare for the next one.